And greetings, everybody. I don't have many people visiting these days because I've not been on this channel very much. But an early Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. I decided to take a day off today from work. And so I have a little bit more time today just to reflect and think. And I decided just to talk about, to shoot the breeze. I'm hoping Dr. Sandy Pidgeon will join us in this show today. So for those of you new to this channel, this is the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel. It's a little not quite as humid as it should be that I'm used to, so I'll be a little raspy. This channel is organized to encourage Christians and to help them build their faith and also defend it by the study of evidence and reasons. We examine physical evidence, such as things in molecular biology and biochemistry, etc., that suggest strongly that the origin of life was a miracle. We criticize evolution theory and argue here on this channel that the better explanation, the most rational explanation for the existence of life is a miraculous process, something that is not naturalistic, something that will be beyond explanation of simplistic science and natural explanations, that God is probably, or someone with a comparable skill set is the best answer for how life came about. And greetings, Janet. Nice to see you. So this is, as many of you know, I've been working quite a bit, and that's why you haven't seen me. But I'm hoping that in not too long that my schedule will ease and I'll be able to resume a little more programming like this. There's also another channel, the Evidence Reasons Academy, that has been also dormant because of my work schedule. But that might be firing up soon because I actually have to study a lot of chemistry because I have a side job teaching. So I look forward to, God willing, having more shows and resuming. So this has been a busy time in my life, but that's good that I have a lot going on. Cram here asked, does this video have a nerd alert? No, this is not going to be a nerd show. We're going to cover just a variety of topics. It was meant to be random. My partner in crime, so to speak, Lieutenant Commander Sandy Pidgeon, U.S. Navy SEAL retired, who has been a part of the show, said he was asking me if I'm going to have a show tonight, and I said, yes, why don't you join? So I'm hoping he'll join us. He was a platoon leader in SEAL Team 8. SEAL Team 8 recently, sadly, had a tragedy. Their commanding officer died in a training exercise. And I thought of Sandy today, and I said, brother, maybe we could talk about, I was thinking about calling him or asking him and say, maybe we could talk about this. I thought of you today. And he and his wife, great encouragement to me during this time of grieving. And so he may or may not join. I hope he does. And we'll just talk about a random variety of topics, lots of stuff in the news. Although we won't cover all of it because you can watch the news yourself, but I do have some commentary on a few things. So Cram said, can I ask you something? Yes, of course. Please type it out. And I'll try my best. There are some things I will forewarn that I can't, regarding McLean Bible, that I've been encouraged not to talk about because there are legal injunctions right now. And even though I'm neither a plaintiff nor defendant, there are some things that have happened to me that may or may not have any impact on that injunction. I don't see why I should be concerned about that, but still, some people have said, Sal, just try to limit my commentary to things that are public knowledge. And it's not like I'm really privy to anything special than what's already in the public sphere. But so I just want to, just a heads up. So Cram asked, can you explain newer dating methods? And actually this pertains to young earth creation. Now for the record, I am a young earth creationist. One of the main reasons is that there's enough, even though we don't have, my personal view is, even though we don't have as much data as we'd want to make a conclusive case that the earth is young, outside of the Bible, we have enough. We have enough that, and the trend continues to go, that the more that we discover, the more anomalies there are for an old earth, certainly anomalies for, like, say, an old life and an old fossil record. So the young earth creation case has really several layers to it. There's the more extreme viewpoint, which I actually happen to subscribe to, that the universe is less than 10,000 years old. Now that leads to some problems with distant starlight. I am a graduate in applied physics from Johns Hopkins University, Master of Science. So I'm very, very well aware of speed of light problems and the assumed constancy of the speed of light, and how that is, at this time, evidence, or at least a very, very good argument against the young universe. That is a problem that I've undertaken to study. So with regard to dating methods, that is a serious one, that if we have parallax methods to determine distant stars are out to 30,000 years, and if the speed of light is constant, then the universe is at least 30,000 years with just simple parallax methods. A parallax method meaning if you're able to take a look at a star from two different locations, you can use trigonometry to estimate the distance. Beyond about 30,000 light years away, it's difficult. So when they say the universe is 13.4 billion light years across or something like that, those are not deduced by parallax method. It's a little bit more complicated, and people can actually argue that those methods are circularly reasoned and therefore unreliable. And I think that is an open question, despite some objections. I think everything's on the table. So has the speed of light changed? I've been actually studying that. It's been put on the table by secular physicists. And even in my cosmology textbook, it talks about something called inflation, where the universe expanded at thousands, millions, if not infinite times the speed of light. And how could that be? And of course, when I heard that, I just about laughed. I said, and I thought young Earth creation models were outrageous. How do you have the universe expanding at such incredibly fast speeds, faster than the speed of light? And of course it would say in my textbook, well, there's an exception. If you have expanding space, it could still be faster than the speed of light. But there's not really any provable mechanism, just a lot of speculations and circular reasoning. So once that's on the table, that you could have kind of objects moving or separating, more properly saying separating, at faster than the speed of light, it's like, well, you could throw anything on the table at this point. So that is a development that is favorable to young Earth creationism and what I'd call young cosmos creationism, that even the secular community has to invoke things that are somewhat close. You could, with some simplification, say moving objects at faster than the speed of light, maybe millions of times faster, if one accepts the inflation field. Now, I said that's a simplification. Formally speaking, it's not really accelerating. It's space being inserted in between. And if that sounds weird, because it is weird. And a Nobel Prize winning scientist, recently Nobel winning prize scientist by the name of Roger Penrose, has said he doesn't believe in that. that there's problems with the inflation explanation. And it's like it's becoming now almost fashionable to be saying the Big Bang could actually be a wrong theory, and all these other patches where you need exotic things like inflation, where things are moving millions of times faster than the speed of light, according to someone like Lind. I don't know what his first name is. So if we can throw on the table, and then another solution instead of the inflation field has been variable speed of light. So in answer to Cram's question, speed of light changed. The creationists themselves are split, are divided on this question. Some say yes, some say no, some say maybe. So this is something I'm studying. So that is one big dating method that the creationists are watching. We've not had a lot of progress on it, but we're trusting with the Lord that he'll give us the answer. Now, it doesn't say in the Bible that he's going to give us the answer, but we've just accepted it as faith because the trend has been so favorable. So we have evidence, so the Big Bang is having problems, and it's so bad that some people propose variable speed of light. Well, if you propose variable speed of light, you can accept things. Some of the problems in creationism, in young cosmos creationism, which would include young Earth creationism, can be potentially solved. So that's one. There's evidences that the solar system, much closer to home, there's evidences that it's young. The magnetic fields and the planets. The comets seem to be very recent. Now, that doesn't mean the whole solar system is young, but still, you got something young and unusual, and it's acknowledged in the secular world that the comets are young, and we're having a hard time explaining the origin. Now, there are two creationist theories for the origin of comets, and then now the belts around all of the rings around Saturn and all the other solar system bodies look young too. And that is cosmologists and people that study the solar system have all acknowledged this is very problematic. One, it's very rare to have planetary rings in the first place, and we have so many planets with planetary rings, and they're all young. They should have been disappeared in a few million years. Of course, the creationists will say, well, that is consistent with a young solar system. And then we have things in the fossil record. I'm going to go to Dallas to talk with someone at the ICR about evidence of chemicals that look very young. So those are the new dating methods. And Colonel Kaleem, sir.
I just had to throw that at you, dude.
This is Lieutenant Commander Sandy Pidgeon, and thank you for your service to our country. My understanding is you are part of SEAL Team 8. You're a platoon leader there. And thanks for joining us. We haven't done this in a long time, brother.
I know. What is it, like October, man?
Or even, yeah. Oh, yeah, when I got trespassed.
We had that awesome discussion for about 2 hours.
And the leadership is watching, and I like, guys, why don't you listen? But we can talk about a number of things. And so I invited you to talk whatever's on your heart, brother, because we haven't done this in a while. And
I just want to check in, see how you're doing. And I'd be curious to ask people in the audience if they're seeing the same kinds of what do I want to say? Tactics, techniques, procedures, any kind of deleterious things to their churches that are happening in ours. Because as you and I've talked, Sal, we've seen several people that have come and said, hey, the same thing's happening in our church. The elders basically either taking over I just had another guy in the FRT call me the other day. He left Prince William known this guy a long time, Marine, CIA operative, got the NSA, just retired. But he said this. He went to another church out in Berryville or somewhere out past in Loudoun County, and it's happening in their church now. Their elders just took the church over. They're not listening to the congregants, and they're now violating the constitution of their own church by changing the standards unilaterally. So they are very concerned that the same thing is going to happen. And we went through, and he talked me through what they were doing. Now, some of it is not as nefarious as what has happened to us or to McLean, pardon me, because I got rid of my membership. But I'd be curious if anybody in the audience has had or is under, if those same things are underway in their church. Man, it's amazing though watching God work in this whole thing. Just amazing, the fact that you got that email today, I busted a gut laughing, man. I busted a gut. I said, this church, these guys are this guy is micromanaging things to the nth degree, and they wonder why they have problems.
It's a comedy hour. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, it's amateur hour turned into comedy hour.
Yeah. So, hey, Dapper Dino. So all sorts of things are going down at that church, and I've been encouraged to just try to limit what I have to say to kind of the public knowledge. And it's like, well, what's public knowledge is really everything, but there's going to be, and this is public knowledge, what I'm about to say. David Platt lost the court ruling December 3rd or thereabouts. That's public knowledge. And it's also public knowledge there's another ruling coming up December 17th. So that's going to be another big one. That's public knowledge. December 16th, a $25 million budget is going to be up for vote with no discussion. And they moved this online. And the last time they tried to have a discussion, McLean had published this. So this is public knowledge. They claimed that there was some sort of physical disruption there and armed security was involved. And I'm just like, okay, this is becoming a real fiasco because they don't want to have people challenging them. And I put this in the comment section. I did not identify the Christian mother's name, but she was a Christian mother, was threatened with arrest and jailed by armed security at the behest of David Platt, Wade Burnett and company. A Christian mother. So, okay, so maybe a misfit like me, you might understand, but a Christian mother? Okay.
A misfit. We're all from the land of misfit toys there, brother. So,
yeah, brother.
Oh man, that's hilarious. It's just so predictable. The whole thing is just, and there's another group within our group that wants to reach out to these guys, and I said, guys, just be careful what's going on. Be careful. Yeah, Keith. Yeah, it's worse in Australia. I mean, it's getting. Who was it? There was a world leader that reached out. I think it was it the prime minister? It wasn't the prime minister. It was a former prime minister of the UK, or was it Macron that just called Australia a bunch of totalitarians? And but that all started. Where did that all start? That all started with taking away the weapons. After that one incident, it's all slow. It's all incremental. It happens. Jordan Peterson was talking about this on Dave Rubin's show the other night. Dave Rubin. Rubin's show the other night about the incrementalism that takes place in a society, and he was talking about a book by Christopher Browning called Ordinary Men, and it was about a Polish battalion that in Germany, the Polish battalion in Poland after the Germans had taken over, and had years to condition these guys that they were the ones who were committing a lot of the atrocities, not only against Jews but against Polish people who are against the Nazis. And it's amazing the whole process that takes place. But this has been going on for a while. So yes, Brian Bourgeois. It was a fast roping accident. I don't know the details of it, but we had somebody, this was, I want to say about 10 years ago, and it was actually a guy who I knew who was in like 3 BUDS classes behind me. I was still at the BUDS compound taking advanced training, so I knew most of the guys who were going through classes. But at Naval Special Warfare Unit 4, they were doing what's called it's a static fast rope practice where they put you in the helo, you rise up, and they drop the ropes, and you're just practicing sliding down the rope. The problem is that they were trying something where they were not hooking up, and when you have a fast rope, you have I don't know if that's still true anymore. We had a wire that was threaded through the top of the fast rope, so because you hook it up to the hoisting mechanism on a Blackhawk. If there are other rigs on the 53s and you go through the hellhole on a CH-46, or you go on the hoist. But that thing is then tied to the frame, so if the hoist breaks, you still have a means of holding guys onto the fast rope. Well, this guy they just lifted the helo up, and the problem was that they had my understanding is they had the safety wire off, and they were practicing what's called cutaways, where you cut the rope after everybody slid down it. Well, you usually get tapped out. Well, the guy thought, and this guy's an experienced guy. He got tapped. He thought he was supposed to go. What they were doing was that was the tap to say stop. We're dropping the ropes. He grabbed the rope and fell out of the bird. So I'm not sure if this was the same thing. I hope it wasn't, because I thought we fixed that. But God bless him, man. It's dangerous business. I used to when we did ship takedowns. That was for me the worst. The worst part was because you're flying in with a moving ship, and they come in and they flare, throw the ropes out, and to me that was the worst part, because we had the old style body armor back then that was all Kevlar, and that stuff was super heavy. Then I had a SATCOM radio on my back, plus my MP5 and magazines and a med kit and all the rest of that stuff. So I'm carrying 100 pounds of gear, and I don't have big hands. So I'd get down that fast rope and my gloves would be smoking, plus you're moving around, the helo's moving around, and the ship's trying to do evasive maneuvers, and it's dangerous. But once you get on the deck, I was usually pretty fine. But I don't know what the situation was. I've been trying to find out, but God bless them. It's a dangerous business. Even the pieces of missions that can go wrong if you don't take the right precautions can get you into trouble pretty quick.
And I'm sorry to have to bring up SEAL Team 8 on kind of this sad note, because before this happened, I actually wanted to talk about this movie, and I didn't even know they had a movie about your SEAL team. Did you know about this
Tom
movie?
Sizemore, he's a hoot. I've never seen it.
What clips are available on the internet are pretty bad, brother.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Can I suggest if you watch it, it'd be worth it as a comedy?
I don't know if I don't want to waste my time. I'm trying to study. I just got this book from a lady who was raised an Orthodox Jew. In my Bible class, she converted to Christianity. So I'm trying to go through this book, which is, Jews and early Christianity, which is really interesting because this guy claims that John the Baptist was an Essene from Qumran, which I had never heard before. Yeah. So I'm studying through that. But that would make a lot of sense culturally. So interesting. But yeah, I don't want to. Look, Tom Sizemore, when he was in Black Hawk Down, was really good, and when he was in Saving Private Ryan, was really good. But I've heard this SEAL Team 8 movie is just like really sketchy. I just don't even want to say I've ever. Okay. I just don't even want to say I've ever watched it.
I don't know if you. Now there was a SEAL movie with what was it?
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. Now there was
I'm in that
Spaceballs with Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, I'm in
like Spaceballs.
I'm in that movie in the and I'm sure you're going to go ahead and find this, Sal, and make it a cut. But in the bar scene, that was down at Oceana, and it was kind of cool. They said, "Hey, if you guys want to all be extras and dance with all the models and everything else, we'll pay you $100, and it's about 12 hours of work." So I said, "What the heck? I'll go." Because I've always wanted to see what happened in movies, and I'll tell you, these guys, they work hard. It's that 5-minute scene took us 12 hours to shoot. Anyway, so we're in the bar, and it's where the chief gets killed. They're having a wake to the chief, and a guy comes in, he starts trouble. "Hey, Squidly, is this your bar?" And they're trying to say goodbye to the chief, showing these goofy golf shots and everything. Well, so there's all these guys in the background that I all recognize. They're all from SEAL Team 4. There's a couple of us when I was at SDV Team 2. But as soon as Charlie Sheen chokes the guy out and the guy lands on the floor, if you look all to the right, to the left of the screen, you'll see my dirty sneakers. And that's my 15 seconds of fame right there.
There you go, man.
As the guy's lying on the floor, you see a pair of sneakers up here and my hyperextended knees, legs, so but there was a lot of guys who did the stunts in there. They did the McGuire rigs where getting picked up out of the river on ropes, and they did a lot of the stunts. So
now there's that scene where Charlie Sheen, he wants to get to base, and he decides to jump off the bridge.
Yeah, right. Sure, Charlie. Yeah. You'd end up breaking your neck jumping off of that bridge. I mean, it was 100 feet high, so.
Okay, so that was Hollywood then.
Yeah, it was Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay, see, this is why it's.
Plus the fact, Charlie Sheen, we'd have kicked him out of a platoon in about 20 seconds, with the crap that he pulled. So, it just, anyway, just.
Well, let
me tell you what's really cool about the movie, though, is that in some respects you got a feeling for how platoon commanders are very close to their chief petty officers. I was always close with my chief petty officers, but also how we hassle each other. Like when they're doing the Halo. They know the one guy hates to jump. I mean, he just hates it. And, they said, "Who the hell packed your chute, Dane? I wouldn't jump it if I were you." And his mask is all fogged up because he just hates jumping. And the worst part of jumping is just getting out of the bird. Everybody's nervous because it's not a natural act, but they captured the essence of us just hassling each other all the time. You are constantly just badgering each other, and even though it's good natured and it's good because you're a bunch of type A personalities that are always moving and shucking, and that was for me as a platoon commander. I loved walking into work every morning. It just because somebody had some story or there was something goofy going on, or guys like, hey boss, here's the plan. It just. Yeah, I love those guys. Just absolutely loved them. But that was seems like 1,000 years ago now, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like now when I talk to you, it's like there's that part of you that was there in the military, and then you shifted gears, and we talk all sorts of things now.
Yeah,
talk about the Bible and about theology and history and archaeology, and
that's what Jesus does for you, brother.
Amen. And even though I didn't serve in the military, I was a defense contractor, and of course I was in the aviation sector, and that was a lot of fun. And you get to bond with all the other pilots, and it starts to rub off on you. I went off to, I eventually had a career in the aviation industry, and I got sent off to flight school. I love that too. I miss flying, I really do. So you and I could have been bush pilots there in Alaska. If, the Holy Spirit
May still do it, man. I don't know. You know, if I can scrape up some money, I'd still like to learn how to fly. But
oh,
and
goodness.
my wife, she comes in and I'll be watching. I've been watching this. These bush pilot videos. These guys landing, taking off, and then I was looking at this aircraft company that I think some of the boys have bought some of their planes, but it's the Sherpa Aircraft Company. It's not the twin engine Sherpas, but it's this. It's an 8 to 10 passenger plane, but you have the ability to put 1,000 horsepower engine on this thing, and it's not much, a heck of a lot bigger than like a Cessna 182, But I mean, this thing is like zing straight up, and it can carry a lot of cargo. So I've been looking at that, and I'm looking at malls and all the rest of the bush planes. But such a wannabe. I got I got the instrumentation down.
Oh yeah,
Sal.
do.
It's the VFR stuff that would scare the crap out of me.
Well, I got a confession to make, and people are surprised at this. I'm actually scared of heights.
Everybody is.
And I started talking to other pilots, and they said, "Yeah, I am too." And I'm like, "Isn't that kind of funny?" So when I'm looking out at the horizon, I'm fine. But if I ever have to look straight down, that just turns my stomach. So sometimes when I'm coming in for a landing, No,
I know guys with 2,000-3,000 jumps, and they'll be the first to tell you they hate getting up on ladders. A 30-foot ladder. I mean, I hate that. I'm just like, because what's the number one killer of men our age now? It's ladders.
Serious? I didn't know that.
I swear to God, I found. You remember when? Remember the leader of the FRT at McLean?
Well, there were various.
Okay,
ones.
He was the volunteer, Bob.
Okay, yeah.
He was up on a ladder, and I have been telling him he's got to tell his story because it was a miracle that he lived. He stepped off the ladder, fell straight down onto his neck, shattered his neck. Oh yeah, shattered his neck. His wife found him, and 5 days later he's up and walking around. Because we had a prayer chain going for him, we had everything, but it was I think it's a bona fide miracle, and I think it should have been documented. I pleaded with him, get this thing documented, and call Craig Keener and have it documented, because Craig Keener's wrote that 2,000 page volume set on miracles. I said, because Bob, you should be dead. I went into his hotel, into a Nova, and walked into his room, and he's sitting up like this with a brace on, and his neck, he's still got a couple of fused vertebrae, but even the doctor said he should have been dead, so
if the doctor said praise the Lord, then
praise the Lord.
And then we've had a similar, although not, is Mark Gottlieb.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. And now he's back up walking, and I hope he's not riding a bike anymore, but geez.
Speaking of which, after that, there are 2 men in church that have had broken necks from one a broken skull, and then Mark Gottlieb bike riding. I don't want to ride bikes after. I know that sounds silly, but
well, it's weird because when I was at French, the Defense Language Institute, one of the guys I befriended, he was a Army petroleum officer, but he was taking French because he had to go to West Africa. Anyway, he let me use, and I ended up buying his really nice triathlon bike. You could lift this thing up with your finger. So I used to go for rides, 17-mile drive all the way to Clint Eastwood's bar, in Carmel, and then we'd ride back, because it's just a gorgeous ride. But I was coming back one time, and a guy passed me, and he cut in on me and grabbed his bumper was sticking. It was an old Ford van, and he grabbed the front of my front wheel and was dragging me, and I'm screaming, and I couldn't get out of it. I was wearing toe clips, and I wasn't any kind of triathlon guru or anything. I had just bought those toe clips, And it was by the grace of God that I lived out of that thing. I mean, finally the guy pulled over and he's like, "Oh, hey man, it's like, sorry, dude." It's like, well, the least you can do is like drive me back to Monterey. So it's like, holy mackerel! That was more dangerous.
Now, we can laugh now, but
well, I lost more guys to basketball, soccer, and motorcycles than to any training accidents. Unbelievable. And I told the guys, and I had this one guy, and I loved him to death. He really smart kid, but he was one of the kids that if I didn't keep him busy, he'd be getting into trouble. But he ended up being a 160th pilot. They actually came in and recruited him out of SEAL team to go to be and he was crackerjack pilot. Just unbelievable. But I told him, "Oh, boss, I won't get hurt on my motorcycle." Well, yeah, 3 weeks before we're deploying, for 6 months, he sticks the peg into his foot and he's done, and he's like, "I'll just fly over." I go, "No, you're not flying over. I got to go find another 60 gunner, So they yanked the guy out of a platoon and gave us him. A great guy, the guy we ended up getting, but yeah, it was that kind of thing. Like, I tell the guys, don't do that. I'm telling you, something's going to happen, and inevitably, there's always the guy who's smarter than everybody else, but he was a smart kid, I'll never take that away from him. He was a super smart guy. And he took to helicopters like that, and was one of the best pilots there. So, but,
I heard one SEAL guy, and I know this, you can't generalize this, but he said, "We sometimes just feel invincible. We're so good,
And in some sense, that's good. If you are of the mindset that you still need to take and do your planning and your homework. If you're just going to beat your chest, I don't want a guy like that. I want somebody who is confident in the way we've planned, confident in their training, and says, yeah, we go in and do this, we got it made, even though, plans usually fail at first contact, but if you've planned for that failure, then, things will happen. That's why I get nutty in these discussions we have with our group. Plan, and put your red team hat on and say, what could this guy do to us, and because every time we've said something, what's this guy do? He does exactly what we predict. So anyway,
I haven't had time. I have to go. I have to go through some hoops to get some material that I could show videos that are really good, and I just have to kind of clear the copyright checks. But there's this beautiful video of the girl that was rescued in Somalia.
Oh, Jessica.
Jessica, yeah.
I can't remember her last name. Was she a Christian missionary? Or she was an aid worker. Aid worker, yeah.
But what was beautiful, she was saying she was praying. She said, "Oh God, please help me." And she's thinking of her mother and crying. She had what may have been a urinary.
Well, Jessica what hasn't made the news very much are these Haitian the missionaries that are sitting still down in Haiti that the bunch of thugs took it. That hasn't made the news at all.
And it
should be front page news.
Because Christian persecution is not talked about.
No.
The victims are, well, you know what the victims are, Jussie Smollett. Real victims are not talked about. I mean,
Charles Barkley, you'll love this. Charles Barkley was laughing about it today. It was on ESPN. I think, was it Chris Plant or somebody? Dan Bongino was talking about it on a show that they played the Barkley clip, and Barkley says, "Listen, you knucklehead, if you're going to commit a crime, you don't write a check to the guys who are doing it." And I busted up, and Barkley is just going off like, God, what a moron,
God bless Charles Barkley.
Barkley's got some issues, but overall, I mean, he tells it like it is, So
he's a good guy. So I was just
Yeah.
mentioning Jessica Buchanan. I wanted to show that clip because it was
Jessica
very
Buchanan,
moving.
yes, correct.
Yeah, yeah. I just looked it up now, because it was beautiful. She said she was just praying. She said, "God, I need help." And then she said she heard this scratching noise, and some people said it's some sort of, kind of rifle, uh, probably. But she's hearing this scratching noise, and then the look at the guard that was attending to her just had this scared look, and then next thing you know, so she's there in Somalia, and then suddenly it's silent, and then she just hears people calling her, speaking English, saying Jessica, and she just like, what are Americans doing here? And they identify themselves, and they carry her out, and she said, this is the moving part. They said we have to protect her, and so they lay her down. They lie down on top. They said, we might be taking some fire, and they lay on top of her. And she said, you know what? They didn't even know who. I didn't know who they are, but they're laying down their lives for me. They're willing to take a bullet for me. And she said, I just like, these are the greatest guys. And then the helicopter gets them. The SEALs go in another helicopter. She's in another. She said, I don't even know who they were. She was just saying, thank you, and that was just a moving account because she looked so helpless. And, it's even people that weren't particularly religious were just very moved and just saying, praise the Lord for that. Makes me proud to be an American.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just a shame what's been going on in the last, what happened in Afghanistan. It's still, I just cringe. I can't even, I will tell you, I've never in all my years of, the 20 years in the teams and doing other stuff, I've never felt physically ill until I saw those helicopters flying out of Afghanistan. I never felt, man, unbelievable. And I told you that there was a lady down the street, just down the street. She lives in another house below. There's a group of there's a lady who's got her mother living with her, but they're Iranian dissidents, Christians. But this lady from Afghanistan who was in the hospital in Kabul when the Taliban took it down a couple of years ago, she lives in the basement, but she came over, banged on my door. I'd never met her before, and she could barely speak English. And she works out at Dulles, I think, as an attendant. But she came and she's frantic. She's got all this paperwork, and her brother was the chief pilot for Ariana Airlines. Her daughter, her sister was an aid worker over there who was working in the American school, teaching, and she couldn't get them out. And the State Department was going crazy. So I'm calling whoever I could. I don't even know if they got out or not, because I haven't talked to her in a week or two, but I'm hoping they did. But there are a lot of guys who went back to pull people out that were, interpreters that the State Department screwed up for years, didn't get them their visas that they were promised. So guys took it upon themselves.
They sit on Christians. The State Department it's like if a Christian wants asylum or whatever, they sit on it.
Yeah. Well, these were all most of these guys were all interpreters, and but your point is well taken for Haiti. It's what are we doing? Why haven't we called up the D-boys and gone down there and kicked a few doors in? So
I just think it's the spirit of the age, because people are willfully believing lies, and just like now, for lack of a better example, Jussie Smollett. BLM is still backing him, even after
because he fits the narrative. Yeah, it fits the narrative. So.
But on a lighter note, I was watching, because of befriending you, I started watching some SEAL team history. And okay, I'm sorry I have to raise this.
Sal, please! I told you that is. Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah, this is a documentary.
Okay. Document. Okay, I thought you meant that CBS
No.
television series that drives me
Oh,
up.
there was one, huh? I need to watch
Yeah,
that.
it's called SEAL Team, and I've never watched an episode of it. I've seen all these little, trailers for it, and I said, "Oh my God, please, just stop."
So I think it may have been in, in the Lebanon or Israeli. I don't know where. It could have been Afghanistan or Iraq. I think more likely it was Iraq. And they sent the SEALs in to do a capture of a high value target, a terrorist.
Yeah.
And they said, well, the first thing is they had to go through their own security, and they were worried they're going to get shot by their own security because they were in plain clothes, and carrying guns, because they were trying to blend in. I was like, I didn't know the Navy SEALs would be involved in this, but I guess they had the right skill set. And so they get
that's JSOC's primary mission set is hostage rescue.
Okay.
I mean, that's out of the whole Desert Eagle debacle back, during the Iranian hostage rescue, because it was so screwed up from the beginning. And not that Charlie Beckwith put together the best he could. The problem is it was so haphazardly in the air power put together and unrehearsed well. And Jimmy Carter was trying to micromanage things from the White House. I mean, and Charlie Beckwith, who was the founder of Delta Force, in his memoirs talks about just how screwed up it was. The comm links and everything else. It was it was horrendous because they had never done anything like that before. Whereas like the British SAS, they had a team that had been doing stuff like that. So did the Israelis. And so they were learning from that. But nevertheless, that became JSOC's primary mission. And then they also do, high value targets now, like bin Laden. So, and that's their primary focus. So
that was very interesting. Now, the funny part of this is they got to the bad guy's place, and they were able to detain him, but he was with a woman, and she just kept getting angry and realized she was a prostitute. And so the SEAL commander pulls out the cash and pays her. I just thought,
told her to go away. Yeah,
he could have just gone, but he said he felt it'd be the honorable thing to give her some money because she looked like she wants to be paid. And I just broke out laughing.
Yeah. Well, that's like the first guy when Rob O'Neill went through the door to kill bin Laden. They cracked him, but they had to grab two of bin Laden's wives and wrestled them to the ground. And really, the most brave guy was the guy who did that, because they didn't know if they were wired up, as suicide bombers. And he just went ahead and grabbed them and put them on the floor. But yeah, that was a heck of an op.
And there were some moving accounts where, hey, she wants to get
dapper. It's commerce.
Now, there was another guy, and he was in a firefight, and they were losing it. And he's saying, "Oh God," he said, "I'm not a religious guy, but that moment, I said, I want to." He had taken 3 bullets.
Yeah.
Even one could kill you. And he was like, God, I really I want to go back home and see my wife and kids. And there was a gunship up there. And the gunship said, "Oh, we can't, you want us to fire where? We'd probably kill you too." They said, "Well, we're going to be dead anyway. Shoot."
Yeah.
And that's how he was
call it in danger close.
Yeah, I was really moved by the account, because
Jason Redmond,
he'll call to God,
Yeah, Jason Redmond he was in Fallujah, and he came over and had dinner at our house, but we got a call one day. They put out on the SEAL link, "Hey, this kid has been put into Bethesda. His face is all shot up, and he needs somebody to go up." So I just went up,
and his jaw was wired shut. Now here's the funny part. If you want to talk about how,
that's the guy who's calling out to God. So
yeah,
you got the
Jason
name.
Redmond.
Wow.
Well,
Came to
I'll
your
tell you the
house.
story. So I go in there, and I don't know what his injuries are. So he's the guy who had the famous placard on his door that said, "If you're coming here to feel sorry for me, don't do that. You know, I love what I did," and blah blah. Anyway, they bronzed that placard he put up on the door because everybody was coming in and feeling sorry for him. And he says, "I don't want that crap." Well, anyway, so I go up there, and this is when I still have my beef jerky machine, and I didn't know his face was all shot up, you know, and his jaw was wired shut. So I walk in there, and he's going, "Hey man, how's it going?" like this, and he's, you know, walking with a limp, and he's got his arm up like this, and his parents are in there, and so is Erica, his wife. Well, I walk in there, and I'm like, "Hey dude, how's it going? Can you get time for a fellow frogman? I live down the street." And I said, "Hey, I brought you some beef jerky," and he busted up laughing. He said that was the funniest, because of course his jaw's wired shut, so he can't eat any beef jerky. And his parents were mortified that a team guy would bring in beef jerky. But that's the kind of thing, you know, he said that was the funniest thing that had happened to him in a month, you know. And standing right in the next doorway, there he is, yeah. Standing right in the next doorway was, who's the TV show? Thank you. My wife just walked. Conan O'Brien was standing in the doorway next to us because who was talking to Sal? We're on live, just so you know. So Conan O'Brien is standing in the doorway next to Jason Redmond's because what's the NBC reporter that got blown up? Stone. I can't remember what his name is, but he got the kid who saved his life. Stone was in there visiting him, and Conan O'Brien was there. And Conan O'Brien's like, "Oh, hey man, can I go in and say hello to Jason? And I feel really sorry for him." And I said, "Hey Conan, you know, don't know you from Adam, but maybe better read what's on the door, dude. He doesn't want you coming in and feeling sorry for him." So Jason came in. They had dinner one night because he's gone through, I don't know, 30 surgeries or something for his face, but he's helping out with ministry for guys that are, you know, have PTSD and have injuries, and you know, he's still going. I believe so. Yeah. And
praise the Lord, because I was watching that documentary, and the way he said he cried out to God that moment, I said, I hope he becomes a Christian, because I mean, you got your face is all shut up, your eyes are hanging out of your eye socket, and you're asking God to help you. I said, you're sincere. You really mean it.
Yeah. When I brought him in that bag of beef jerky, and well, first of all, I saw that his jaw was wired shut because he's having to syringe out the saliva out of his mouth, and he's looking at me like, "Hey, dude, I brought you some beef jerky." And he was laughing so hard I think he was about to break, you know, his braces off, because it's just the way team guys do each other, you know. So, you know, guys in there with a broken leg, you say, "Hey, man, I brought you in some new dancing shoes," or something. You know, you just do something stupid because it just breaks the air, and it's "Hey, dude," you know. But it was just a funny moment. But wonderful people. They've got a couple kids, and they're running I don't know if it's a Christian-based helping organization, but he's written a book and done some other stuff. So he's helping guys out a lot.
You know, especially the guys that have, you know, just the accounts, as the ones who've gone through battle, and they talk about God. It's like, I get it, you know, because you're facing death, and that has a way of just like kind of putting the right perspective on everything. You know, making you think about stuff that you probably never thought of. And, you know, even Howard Waston, you know, is in the Battle of Mogadishu, and he was just saying, I think God had a reason for all this. And you just hear that. And and you know, sometimes I think atheism starts to grow a lot when you have a very prosperous society and, where stuff is handed to them and they take things for granted. It's
Yeah.
really, the generations that have had to go through difficulty, when they don't feel sufficient, when they're aware that they need a greater power, they start to search. And, that was my dad's generation. So speaking of which, Bread of Life is here. Before you say goodbye, Rebecca, I'd like to announce we're going to be doing a show called "The Faint Heart Never Won a Fair Maiden." I'm actually writing I've been thinking about this book project for a while. "A Faint Heart Never Won a Fair Maiden" is an essay in a book that's a collection of essays that shares the gospel message through romance stories, through not romance stories, but historical stories and archetypal love stories, archetypal and historical love stories. And one of the stories there is of my mom and dad. So, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
My dad was a guerrilla in World War II. My mother and father met each other as children in the Philippines. They weren't really dating or anything as teenagers. When they just acquainted, the war broke out. Dad, as a teenager, went into the jungles to become a guerrilla fighter. There are probably.
I would have loved to have talked to your dad about just guerrilla warfare in the jungle, and surviving out in the jungle. I got to do that with some Negrito Indians up in it's the island of. They came down to Zamboanga, and they were teaching us how to do bushcraft with man. You can do anything with bamboo. It's awesome. But I would have loved to have talked to your dad. God, what a wealth of knowledge.
He would have loved to have talked to you. And just like a lot of heroes of the war or people that fought, he never talked about it. If I asked him, he'll talk. Now, the funny thing is, this is the only way I could explain it. He likes to watch war movies, but it's like, okay, I think the reason you like them is because there's always a happy ending and all the good guys never get killed and you don't really see a lot of the graphic stuff. And I think that's why he enjoyed it, because the real stuff was just too hard to talk about. My mom, on the other hand, you can't show her anything. It was just too horrible for her. She would not, when she saw me watching documentaries, she couldn't handle it. She said, "No, I can't watch that with you, Sal." So Dad was different, but because of this thing with Jussie Smollett, I was just saying, look at the difference in what real men were versus this feminized guy who's just playing the victim, and he's not even a real victim. What matters to him is not anything of moral value. What mattered to him is just that people would just shower him with attention. I said, yeah, that's all it's about. Just theater to you. Nothing's real. Dad, on the other hand, he was out there as a teenager fighting for his homeland. There were probably 400,000 Japanese.
Yeah, and those guys were brutal.
Brutal. Now, the official numbers of the Philippine Army, which Dad was, I don't know how the command structure, but it's like 2,000. So you're outnumbered 100 to 1. His primary mission was intelligence, but he did fight some battles, and I have his diaries. It's very moving because it's just a very small book. And there are all these incidental things, like the last comment in his book, he's saying, "I'm really mad at Sal. He left the door unlocked." Like, this is how you close your diary. The last page of the last entry is like, Sal left the door open. And you could tell he was just really, he chewed me out for it. And it's like, Dad, we live in the same neighborhood. But then you'll have all the big events like, this is when my daughter was born, and sad events like the miscarriage. Around the time he got married, I think he had the date there. I don't think he had the entry on the wedding day. Okay. But he did have the births. And then there was one entry where he said the fighting was very bad today. Frazo died. And he's telling me that, some of his soldiers had died in his arms. And he says very, very sad because they're telling him tell their wives that, to say farewell. He said that was really sad. And so those are all the little bits and pieces. And I said, that's a real man. And it's not that he never had fear, because when he was, at night, a lot of times I'd hear him screaming. And then in the morning I'd say, Dad, what's going on? I mean, you're having a pretty bad dream. He said, yeah, the Japanese were shelling us, artillery. And he said that's the thing that got him more than anything, was the artillery, because you don't know, the next one lands is going to, blow some of your limbs off. And he screamed. And I said, you know what? Courage is not that you don't have fear, but that despite your fear, you do what's right. And he did that, because I knew he's just like a human reaction. He'd be afraid for his life, but he could have left the battlefield and never fought again, but he chose to continue. And so I'm like, yeah. And if you met him, he's the sweetest guy on the planet. You look at me, that's my dad, except he's much more soft-spoken, not very articulate, because he can't really speak English well. If you saw a convenience store clerk that's from another country, that would be my dad. You would not know he had the heart of a champion. Just so soft-spoken and humble, and the sweetest, kindest guy. And then, so now this is the other spoiler alert, but when I do my show with Rebecca, I'll probably elaborate on this more. In the Philippines, there's a lot of corruption of power. And Dad was already an ex-soldier around 1945, 46. And there was an armed lieutenant, I think, in the Philippine Army. This wouldn't have been tolerated in the American Army. He was practically kidnapping my mom. I don't get all the details, because it's a long time ago and I'm getting this secondhand. But my mom said, this guy was practically kidnapping him, forcing her to be his girlfriend or whatever, his wife. I don't know all the details, but like, guys, that's not a cool thing to do, to abuse power that way, to try to get your girl that way. But I guess that's kind of there's a lot of corruption still in the Philippines of that kind of thug attitude. And Dad intervened, argued with the guy. He had no arms. He said, in his native language, he said, you got to kill me first before you get to her. That's all he was armed with. All he was armed with.
God bless him.
God bless him.
Yeah.
And so the other guy, maybe there's a shred of sense in him, and say, yeah, this is not a way to win a girl's heart. You're going to kill an innocent man to get that girl. She'll never love you for that, for sure. And he relented. And I think that got my mom's attention, because she was saying, he was the ugliest one of them all, but he was the best. And so they're
God bless her.
Yeah, God bless him.
Oh my
that's
goodness.
a real man.
Yeah.
And it says in the Bible, Jesus said, it says in Ephesians, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life for it.
Yep.
And you see, it's instinctive that a man sacrifices life. And we see that in the case of the Titanic, when the ship was sinking and they didn't have enough lifeboats. It wasn't this equal thing of feminism, The guys were the ones that sacrificed. You see, God designed male and female to have separate roles. And that, I wanted to confront a feminist and say, okay, say you're on the Titanic. What do you do now? What do you do now? Why is it that all the men, at least the honorable ones, would surrender their life? Is that the right thing to do? Do you have a problem with the fact that they feel that that is their role, to be the protector and provider? You see, you may not like it. Granted, they have privilege in society and they try to be protectors and providers. Do you have a problem with them instinctively following that role? You saw it in the Titanic. If you don't like that, tell me why, and what would you do differently?
Yeah.
And so that was my dad. God bless him. And I think that is an image that God put in men by design, because it reflects Jesus Christ.
Amen, brother. Amen. That's you'd probably enjoy. There's a guy named Doug Giles. He runs a website called Clash Daily, and he's kind of he's a bit of a pipe swinger, shall we say? And he wrote a book on the feminization of the American male, and he wrote a book. He has all daughters, how to raise rowdy girls, and it's pretty cool. But oh, somebody wants to see our dog. Oh, hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull him up. Come here, Tobes. Come here. They want to see you. Come here. Come here. Oh. So this is my daughter's service dog. His name is Toby. And say hello. Hello.
It's cute dog.
There we go. There we go. Oh, okay. He's wiggling around. Okay, you can get down. You can get down. Go ahead. All right, there you go. He's pretty cool. I didn't think I'd like corgis as much as I do. We went last Saturday. You'll love this. We went out to Middleburg, and they have the Christmas parade, and they have the parade of corgis, and there was like, I don't know, 50, 70 corgis, whatever it was, 40, 50, whatever it was. And you just parade, and you got Clydesdales behind you and mules, and it's pretty cool, but just so much fun. But he's a great dog. He's Ferdinand the Bull. He likes to just sit outside and look around. He's not like one of these jumping around corgis all the time. He just will sit and look.
Yeah.
So he's a lot of fun. But you'll meet him someday.
If you see me looking back and forth, I have another screen, and I'm just looking at data and stuff to talk about. I did want to mention one, Jordan Peterson, and I know I'd expect.
I was just going to bring Jordan Peterson up. Yeah, go ahead.
80% of his audience are men. Very interesting. Only 40% of churchgoers are males. Now, I was just told that there's this book, Why Men Hate Going to Church. And I was also thinking, why is it that guys really gravitate to listening to Jordan Peterson? And I think one of the things kind of relates to what I just said. There's a role for a man, and whether Jordan Peterson wanted, I don't think he specifically targeted men, but a lot of the things he says resonates with guys. Talking about
resonates with scripture too. I mean, that's why his daughter just came to Christ last month or 2 months ago.
Praise the Lord for that.
But he has every time, and he's probably one of the most brilliant psychologists / psychiatrists in the world. But everything he talks about has a moral basis that's based on script, and he has come to this conclusion because the split of with Sigmund Freud, when they tried to suppress God because Sigmund Freud tried to replace morality with the human mind, and that need to study things rather than, and so you have an answer instead of having God as the answer. It's come full circle now, and it's interesting that Jordan Peterson in his books, but most recently in all of his videos, he said, "I can't believe it, but I believe in Jesus," and he makes, with all of these secular psychologists and with Sam Harris, who it's all about neuroscience. Well, I can sum up Sam Harris's argument in one sentence: neuroscience is descriptive; it is not prescriptive. And you can go through all the chemical analysis and everything else. It's still descriptive, and it's not But anyway, Jordan has come full circle and brought a lot of people with him full circle, so that guys who want the 12 lessons for life, which are biblical, and Jordan didn't set out to make them biblical, but he has come from the secular study of the world to that. And he's brilliant, but he,
it's unfortunate that that a Jordan Peterson has had to come along to explain everything, where the secular world has now come full circle back to the Bible, and he shows, there are roles in psyches of men and roles in psyches of women, and even the societies that have tried to flatten the curve and have more women engineers than more men nurses. It's just men gravitate to things and women. Gee, did we know that before in the Bible? Hello. So it's just very interesting that we tried to secularize everything and base everything. Well, the human mind knows better than what the Bible taught. Well, that's not true at all. Just look back at all of this history. So it's interesting to watch Jordan's, I hate to say evolution. We all kind of abhor that word, except for Dapper Dino. I got it, Dapper. We got it, But it's interesting to have watched his coming around and being able to explain things and literally come to the realization of human nature being based on things that are far outside of human nature, that have given us our nature. Timelessness, something that has to be timeless, spaceless, materialist, matterless, so that whole thing it's been very, very interesting to watch his progression, and even if you go back 7 years on his videos, he still argues with a Christian undergirding, even though he would never say it. He was and he debated Dillahunty on stage, and he basically crushed him, and Dillahunty ended up getting his usual cranky self.
I know.
So
I've had my fill of Dillahunty.
Why, yes, you have, haven't you? So
yeah, if we had another debate, I wouldn't let it. I wouldn't say, and he won't agree to these rules. I say, you don't interrupt me when I'm making a point that's crushing you, because once there are a lot of times he knew he was getting caught and he just interrupt me, and I'm just like, okay, you're in this for yourself. You're not really here to. I realize that you're not here for the truth.
Yeah. Well, I was just over on Praise's channel watching Smokey was debating a guy who says he's agnostic. I think he's really an atheist, Mark Reed. And Smokey was crushing him, and the guy was all he would do was just keep pounding away and interrupting Smokey. And the guy, he would keep going back over the same points. And I came from the middle of the debate because I wanted to come over and talk to you, but so I don't know how it ended up, but Smokey was crushing them with the information. He was not getting exacerbated with them. And he should have, because the guy was just making these ridiculous claims. But
going back to Peterson, the point I was going to make is, okay, so, and someone else noticed this. They said, more guys would be going to church if pastors would preach like Jordan Peterson. I said, yeah, there's something that resonates. One of the things Peterson said is, he said, okay, you want to go change the world? You clean your room first.
Yeah.
How are you going to change anyone else? And it's like, yeah. And I could say that about McLean Bible leadership right now. It's like, you want to go change DC? You want to go change the world? Look what you're doing to your own church. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's interesting. They've gone back to that meme, haven't they? After we complained about it. Now they're starting to talk about, we need to change Washington, D.C. Well, yeah, knucklehead, we told you that 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah. See,
so
it's like, well, you got to change, and just like, why is it that, Peterson, I mean, that seems like common sense, but that resonated with me. And he was saying, we have all this victimhood here. He said, yeah, it's hard that you may be disabled. You may be a minority. You may be a woman. You may be this or that. He said, but look at the central figure of Western culture. What more innocent person has there been that has suffered more innocently than Christ? And Peterson went like this and extended his arms like Christ on the cross, to symbolize this is Jesus. He said, why does that resonate? Where the most innocent person in human history is the one that's suffering. And he said, you know what? Yeah, you can lament, but what do you do in the face of this? What do you do in the face that, you might be treated unjustly? And he's just saying, you find a reason for carrying on. And I just started bawling my eyes out. He said, okay, I know it's bad, but you know what? You got to be there for your family when your dad passes away. I just started crying when he said that. Oh my goodness. Because I did not fulfill my responsibility. That really hit home. But I said, I'm going to be there for my family when my mom dies. When my mom dies,
gracious,
I'll do
Sal,
it right.
Yeah, I think everybody has so much respect for the way you cared for your mother for all those years, literally.
But I wasn't there for Dad's funeral. I wasn't there to help arrange and comfort. But I changed. I did change. Praise God.
Yeah,
that
but
probably.
Look.
Well, thank you, brother.
You should not worry about if you're at your dad's funeral. Your dad is gone. He was gone. A, B, and a lot of people, I wasn't at his funeral. Okay, if you couldn't get there, you couldn't get there. I don't think that anybody's going to hold that against you. But look what you did for your mother. I mean, you want to talk about the epitome of sacrifice for your mother in what you did is just, it's an inspiration to me. I will just tell you straight up. So
I actually did attend my dad's
and I think that's
funeral.
why all these ladies are now, in our group are like, well, Sal, tell me about your girlfriend. Sal, tell me about this.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, because you're getting back into the swing, brother.
There have been ladies. Well, I realized, and a woman had told me, they said, Sal, you can get married in the next less than a year. And I realized one of the reasons, like, gosh, he seems like a decent guy. Took care of his mother for 18 years.
Yeah.
He has moral fiber.
Yeah.
But what I was saying, I was such a wreck then. But what Peterson did say resonated with me. Is the idea of taking responsibility. He said, yeah, you got dealt a bad hand. Everyone's been dealt a bad hand. No one's gotten dealt a bad hand worse than Jesus Christ, where he suffered for sins that weren't his own, and he suffered for everyone. I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's so gospel, and you're not a Christian yet, but you understand it. He realized why that set Western culture apart from any other culture was that, we will be purposeful. We will not play we are the victim, but we will still carry on with the right thing to do. And I tell you, a lot of guys, that just resonates. It's like, if you heard that in church and you're a guy, that means a lot to you. For me, 18 years ago, I was thinking about getting married. I think, and she knows who she is. If you're listening, Allison, the most beautiful girl at McLean, and McLean's a big church, and every guy was after her. And I don't know why she picked little old me, but God bless her. And we were just friends, but she was being very friendly. She was saying she wanted to play tennis with me. She'd call me up after, she'd call me up and she'd say, we could play tennis after church. And she says, why don't you come over and drive me to church? I'll sit beside you. Okay, she's really kind of, and we'd play. And I eventually, we went out as friends. And I said, the next guy that meets her is going to be her husband, because it wasn't going to be me. And I just knew the Lord put that on my heart. And, and it was just, she met someone else. And I said, okay, I feel this is of the Lord. A few months later, a little bit unexpectedly, my dad died. And I said, yeah, God's put me here for my mom. Now, I got to tell you something about my mother. I had taken a girl out, and I brought my parents along, had the girl. We were going out to watch figure skating, and I was treating my mother and father. This is 2 years before my dad died, and treating the young lady to figure skating. Well, it's just really instinctive of me. Mom's a little bit, she doesn't walk so well. I'd always check, and if she's a little slow, I'd walk and try to attend to her. She scolded me that night several times. She said, "You take care of Stephanie."
Good for her.
She did not find it acceptable that I would neglect my date for her. So this is the one time it's like, it was kind of good that Mom was kind of on the date. She kind of set me straight. This is what I expect of you, son. You don't treat a woman like that.
She's spot on.
And if you're married, you make her, next to God, the number one thing in your life. And I knew that if I'd been married, my mom would have gone to a nursing home. She would not have tolerated me attending to her constantly. She would have sold her house and lived in one little old room. And it would probably have broken my heart, because I know she would have done it for me, because she would not have tolerated me not giving my 100% to the younger Mrs. Cordova. And so I think it was of the Lord that I didn't get married, because then I could give 100% to my mother and not feel guilty. So, by the way, you gave me a data point that the women in our church are asking about my girlfriend.
Oh my goodness, it's hilarious. It's all, well, because they do. They think the world of you. So, hey, if they didn't, trust me, there is no, hell like a woman's scorn. So.
Oh goodness.
So, no, they're all rooting for you, Sal. So, we all are.
You.
So, it's, you paid your dues, so to speak, out of pure love, and people have the most respect for that. So,
yeah, I'm sorry that you didn't get to meet my parents. They're characters, especially my mom. I mean, can you imagine they're scolding me on a date that I didn't treat the lady right?
Well, she was half as much like Veronica, man.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Veronica's my sister. She's like she's the woman with ice water in her veins. I'm like the perpetual teenage girl. Yeah. So so this thing about Jordan Peterson in church, I'm just like, yeah, that it really resonates. And it's like, this is what's happened to evangelicalism, unfortunately. It's gotten too feminized too, like the rest of the culture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
that's why I like reading Doug Giles stuff. The guy knows the Bible in and out, and he's just sick of this wimpy Christianity, gooey. And in MacArthur's book, remember lady in our group, LB, she turned me on to that book by John MacArthur. Called Jesus Unleashed, and it's amazing. I mean, Jesus was he was swinging some pipes at times, man. He did not, and he have to? No, he reserved his ability to, with whatever he had to do, and knowing all of his foreknowledge, but he still went out and gave the biblical manhood story that we should be relaying, which is rather humorous that it's now being taught at McLean. Not that book, but Biblical Manhood by, sure. Right. Right. Okay. Gotcha. And I just find that rather, I had one of the guys in the FRT, he said, I didn't like what happened the other night. And I'm like, yeah, well, look, dude, you're letting this guy teach you about biblical manhood, who, is so questionably weird in his ethics to begin with. You're going through that class with him, really? You ought to be going through. Good Lord.
And I maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's hard for me to be quiet. A biblical man does not use armed security against a Christian mother. That is just so cowardly. Why do you have to do that?
Okay, hold on one second. Yeah, it's right here. My wife's writing your Christmas card right now. So.
Oh, God bless her. Hi, Miss. Hi, Suzanne. I wanted to call her Mrs. Pidgeon. She said, "Call me Suzanne."
Please, good Lord.
But I was just like, that's kind of. I mean, to me, Do you need to use armed security because you don't want to deal with a Christian woman confronting you? Threatening her with arrest and jail? That's cowardly. Dude, you got something to hide.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know, that's, you know, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
What would a man say? It's like, well, you know, I really don't want to comment on that. All right. If you really do have something to hide and it's for a good reason, that's maybe the way to handle it. You don't take armed security and shoo her out of the church because she's asking you tough questions. Take it like a man, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. Good for you, Sal.
Well, maybe I don't have to say sorry.
Get your dander up, brother. Don't say sorry. Shouldn't be sorry.
Shouldn't say sorry. Yeah, they may take it out on me. So what? That's behaving like a wimp. That's disgusting. I'm sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't say I'm sorry. I'll probably get kicked out for saying that, you know?
Yeah. No, lolly post is 2 words. Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm with you. You know, the way that it was handled was just
doing this to a Christian mother in front of her children.
You know, I don't want to answer your question, so I'm going to sick these guys on you. Well, really? Seriously? You know, I will tell you that night was a turning point when people saw that. That's why we had one FRT quit right there. He just said, I'm not doing that. Answer a question. Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah. So he's done, and he stuck around even longer than I did, trying to make it work. And I said, dude, you're not going to make it work. These guys are hard. They're either being paid to do this, and they are completely inculcated in a sociocultural norm that isn't biblical. And so there's something demonic going on. And you need to extricate yourself out of there. So
you know what? See, that's the Lord working in someone's conscience. He saw that. You know, and at first, you know, I'm not going to mention her name. I'm going to try to avoid it. But she contacted me because I'd been trespassed, and you know, I got through that. I'm like, okay, maybe a misfit like me might get trespassed, but not you, a Christian mother.
Yeah,
a beautiful young Christian mother, and just the thought that David Platt's going to use armed security to threaten her with arrest and jail. I'm just like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
you know. Here is a woman who has served the church a long time, and she's going to get treated like that. And I've not seen that she's done anything deserving this. So, you know, this is what I call kind of the wimping out, you know.
Well, I had a talk last night with a guy who's still there. He's on the team. And we were talking about you, and I, you know, I said, well, dude, here's what guys who were there said about what happened that night, and nobody could believe, why are we trespassing this guy? Nobody could figure it out. I said, good Lord, Sal's one of the most gentle guys, and all he was doing was walking around the church. It's not like, you know, we had the the crazy guys who are coming in and saying that they're the, you know, the seventh son of the devil or something. Which you know, we've had crazy dudes come in like that before, but you know, and he said, he is now getting ready to go. He's getting ready to leave because he's had enough.
This woman, okay, after, you know,
and this is a guy. This is a guy who stuck around because he needed the church, and he needed the camaraderie of his guys. You know, because his wife passed away last summer,
and that's another issue. Goodness, that's another one that gets me mad.
Yeah, and nobody from the church but one guy showed up at her funeral, or even when it happened, and he's about ready to check out. So,
in my heart, We don't have to mention names, but when you told me that story, my heart went out to him. And then just this week, we heard about another woman.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My wife's correct. No pastor showed up.
And then,
in fact,
and
the
then
guy
recently,
the guy who ran the funeral was a fire staff guy, pastor.
Yeah, and you see, how did Jesus said, the way you'll know my you're my disciples is you love one another. If you're trying to share the gospel to convert DC and the world, you show love to one another. When the pastors are too busy doing their, going on their speaking tours, accepting large tens of thousands of dollars and not caring for their own flock, that sends a message. And that's one of the reasons people are leaving the church. And you and I heard from a woman recently, her mother died. No one from McLean until the last minute had anything to console her with. She was just asking for scriptures, what's appropriate. And my heart just about broke. I said, that's what's wrong.
I know. I have never talked to her, and I asked her, please reach out to me because she's caring for her father also. They've done nothing for that. The least they can do is just come over and check on her, for crying out loud, and then have the rest of her Christian brothers and sisters, crowding around her. But the pastor's the one who's supposed to know about that, and he's supposed to inform us and tell us, hey, so-and-so has this situation. Can you help her out? Love to.
Yeah.
I can't get it by osmosis. So.
And it's only by God's grace we ran into her. And I just thank God, here's a Christian sister suffering that has been serving her parents and the Lord. I didn't even know about her. And one other thing I wanted to say is that, I appreciate that some of the guys is bothering their conscience that I got trespassed, but I'm just like, yeah, with this Christian mother being threatened with armed security in front of her own children, I said, yeah, there's no question that this was egregious. There's no way they're going to defend that.
Yeah, I agree.
There is her with her children, and she's going to be threatened with armed security. So, they might have tried to spin something for Sal, which they did, but how are they going to get away with this when the story gets out? So I'm expecting some people to be mad enough about this. This isn't, we'll just see where that goes. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I did have a few other things I wanted to talk about before we close. I'll just mention, I wanted to thank you for giving me the Discovery Institute video links.
Those are pretty good, aren't they? I mean, they're very succinct. And I put down in the comments section, Casey Luskin, when he went through, basically he took Stephen Meyer's book, Darwin's Doubt, and compressed it down to that 25 minutes. And I put down the comments, dude, I wish I had that, your video before because I had to read his book twice because it was meant for somebody who had at least a master's degree in biology. And although I had the rudimentary biology and kinesiology and physiology when I was a swimmer and a swimming coach, not down at the genetic level. So it was hard reading, but well done. Don't get me wrong. It's just for a layman, it was very difficult reading, but Casey took it down a notch and but what was linked to that was right after that was Gunter Beckley's talk. And Gunter Beckley, some of it, and then linked to that as well was a debate between Gunter Beckley and Josh Swamidass, which I found very, very interesting. And I don't know Josh at all. I don't know what he's all about, except he is a theistic evolutionist, which it's just not tenable. I mean, the science doesn't work. So anyway.
So, Philip, there are probably all these questions about all these incidents.
You'll find out. It's coming out.
It's coming out, brother.
Yeah. Just keep your nose on the capstone report. If you guys don't know what that is, look up capstone report. And
there is the website. I don't know if I have it in the ticker here. SaveMcLeanBible.org. let me just type it in here. But I can't type and talk at the same time. SaveMcLeanBible.org. So if you go to that website, it'll redirect you to SaveMcLeanBible.wordpress.com. Don't be disturbed by that. That's just kind of, I did that because it's just cheap to do it that way. And you'll get the latest, some of the latest articles, but they'll be, I'm going to try to keep updating this. But, now that David Platt sent armed security to threaten a Christian mother with her children with arrest in jail, this is not going to die easily. I mean, this has riled up a lot of people. This is like so over the top. And it's like, this also tells me we are stumbling upon something that they don't want the public to see. That's why they're going through measures this severe, because there is something big that we've been kind of stumbling upon. And I was starting to stumble on it myself when I was doing the attendance count and say, this doesn't agree with the finances. How can you lose 80% of brick and mortar attendance, and yet you're reporting an increase in your annual revenues that now you're declaring a $25 million budget? Forensic accountants could see this a mile away. It's like, okay, there's something up here, guys. And
Yeah,
they don't want us to know. You think?
I wish I had that kind of an accountant.
Yeah.
Give me a new Dodge 2500 Ram diesel, or something
That's
like
right,
that.
baby.
Instead of my 10-year-old truck, which, praise the Lord, I've got, and it's paid off and runs like a top. So
we'll hear more about this. But back to the Discovery Institute. John Sanford, Dr. Sanford, whom I worked for, and God bless him, for 7 years, and we still work together. I'm just not a paid employee anymore of his. But he said, Sal, it takes a long time to be succinct. And he said, there's a saying that I didn't have enough time to be succinct. And so this Discovery Institute videos that you've been seeing, like the one with the biochemistry, there were 5 PhDs working in this 3 months. And they said, we got to make this compact in like 10 minutes. We don't know how, because we talk like PhDs. We got to figure a way to animate this and make it accessible. So they worked 3 months.
And that's the value that you and I have talked about is for people who, have a high school biology course, and 30 years ago, that would have been probably a master's degree, the way things have been dumbed down. But this is really important because they need to have that knowledge, and every little piece of knowledge they have buttresses their faith, as we've talked about. But especially for explaining things to their kids or coming home from college biology classes, and they don't know that abiogenesis is completely untenable. I'm putting it nicely, but the rest of all the rest of the things, the topics in biology, I mean, just where did enzymes come from? Just little things like that. I mean, did they just appear? So we're not telling people how complicated it really is. And when people say, what do you mean there's 500,000 nucleotides in a single cell? He said, there's 500,000 nucleotides in a single cell. Do you understand that? This is coming from me, the knuckle dragger, coming from the PhDs who've boiled it down to, my biological level of knowledge, So those little things, I mean, one great Christian apologist said that, and Francis Collins has kind of gone off the rails lately, but he had a Christian apologist conference put up a huge graph of one cell and what was in that cell, and then he sat down and he played the guitar the rest of the time, and he said, just concentrate on that cell. He got down and played the guitar, didn't talk about it, didn't anything, and everybody was stunned because of the complexity that was shown in that cell. And he had the numbers up on the graph apparently, and it just spoke for itself. And you cannot just sit there and say this happened by itself. There's just no way. So yes, I would tell you that those 2 Discovery those two Discovery Channel things with, Casey Luskin and Gunter Beckley. And Gunter Beckley is a recent convert. I mean, it's not like he hasn't been an atheist for 25, 30 years in biology as an evolutionary biologist, coming to that conclusion, saying, we're not being honest. When he brought up Gerd Mueller, too, at the 2016 Royal Society Conference, and Gerd Mueller, who's still an atheist, says, this ain't working, guys. This, microevolution, it's not working. And which, blew the whole conference up, even though they tried to suppress, they suppressed it on the press. But I mean, the information is there. So, that's why this is so valuable, Sal, that it can be put into layman's terms so that they understand the concept. Now, and as you and I have talked about, I can't have, a PhD coming up to me and saying, well, this isn't right for this, this, and this. I go, hold on, dude. Okay, let's circle around to this. Here's the information that I know. Here's the information. Here's my sources. And if you have different sources, great. I will get you in touch with these guys. But let's talk about this. I'll circle around you instead of running through the wall.
Well, the thing that was powerful about these videos, and I've been, this has been a project that has been ongoing in the community for a long time. It's like, how can we get the message clear? Because if you looked at the messaging decades ago, it was not very clear. We didn't have really good data. We didn't explain it well. But now the animations, and they say a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely.
They're leveraging it. And I'm just like, I can't believe how quickly we're able to say it would take me a year to teach. And so that's why I'm excited is now we can actually, we have, this is like a, this is like having an airplane when you didn't have one. Finally, one side has it's like now we've got the ammunition, we've got the technology now to communicate very clearly to all levels. Before we could only talk to like kind of people like me. And now we're able to communicate because of the visuals. And
the visuals are so much more powerful because so many more people are visual learners. Number one. Number two, it appeals to, John Lennox talks about this all the time, about semiotics and how, signs and symbols and things that you can, really make radiate in a person's understanding are the best way for people to learn and also to transmit that knowledge to other people, because it's much more tangible to them perceptually. So,
so we covered pretty much everything, and probably shutting the video down. Oh,
you're kicking me out already. Okay. All right.
I'm going to kick myself out too.
I know it's already, what is it? Oh, it's almost midnight. So,
well, we had a lot of fun, but, what I wanted to say was that, you've heard some of my 4 or 5 hour talks. Those videos communicate just as much information in 10 minutes. So I went through all the details. That's why I was really excited, because it's like, just watch that maybe a few times. It's only 10 minutes. If you watch it 5 times, that's an hour long. You'll benefit more. It's just kind of like the experience you had with the book by Stephen Meyer. You read it, it's really painful. It's better to start with something like that, and then the book will make sense. And that's what I wanted to see is I want to be able to just start off people with that. I said, you want creationism at its best, we can give it to you in maybe 1 or 2 hours. You don't have to spend years and years in college. And if you want to study it more, you can go to my academic channel, and we'll talk about kind of all the details of organic chemistry and the structure of the molecules and all, but you fundamentally don't need that. You just need to see it the way they presented. But what was really good was there are all these little bits of humor in there with the cartoons. Like when they talked about the premature termination and they showed Arnold Schwarzenegger there, it's like, that was a good touch.
Yeah.
Because when people enjoy the process of learning, they will remember. And see, even I would remember that one part, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they had lots of little cute things like that. And I've also felt that the way we can communicate this is just lighten up a little bit, add a little bit of entertainment, and people will absorb this better. And because even for me, I don't enjoy. I'll tell you a funny story. I was listening to one of my own lectures on chemistry. I fell asleep to my own lecture. Okay, so like if I'm falling asleep to my own lecture, I know people.
So maybe I should get your lectures and use that instead of my sound machine at night that I got to use to go to sleep. It's got waves crashing and.
We have too much fun at this. Now my schedule might be changing a little bit, because I might be making a little bit more money. I don't have to, work the job that I'm doing. And the one thing I didn't cover, it was on my list of things that we could have talked about. We actually covered everything except this one thing. And it was like, I found this book by James Dobson about Love Must Be Tough.
Yeah.
And there's a chapter.
I have not read it, but I like the title.
Well, it talked about there's a chapter in here. He says it's about how a guy should not try to win a girl's heart. And so why that's kind of relevant to me right now. But it was
hey, let the Holy Spirit lead it. Don't try too hard. It's interesting. Frank Turek, the Christian apologist, he was trying to explain to an atheist, some kid in the audience, and the kid was fairly articulate, but he said, why is it that we have to adhere to a God who would just as soon destroy us than to why should we love a creator like that? Well, first of all, he created you, but second of all, if you don't want to adhere and understand that God created you and that he loves you, he's not going to beg you to stick around. God does not send people to hell. We send ourselves to hell. But he likened it to a guy who is completely chasing after a girl, and he does that so adoringly and tries to try to act like she thinks he would want her to. He tries to act as the girl thinks, as he thinks the girl would want him to act to her, rather than just being himself. And that's how guys make jerks out of themselves. And as you know, I taught in a boys' prep school and I saw, I lived in a boys' prep school my entire life growing up because my dad was a headmaster. And when I taught at a boys' prep school, and we had the girls' school that was across the way, which we never saw them. But I remember a couple of times girls coming over there to track practice, and the guys just started acting like absolute morons. Completely out of character because they tried to act like they thought the girls would want them to act instead of being themselves. And, I had to grab guys at the end. I say, look, guys, let's go back to basics here. Girls, do not be yourselves. If the girl truly likes you, then it's going to be a real friendship and you're going to have fun. Otherwise, just relax. I get it. You're filled with hormones. Just chill out, and well, sir, I was there too. I grew up in a prep school. All right. But it's the same thing. And, I remember dating girls in college, and it just never felt right until I met my wife. And then, but I knew right then. And that was when I came to Christ, I realized that was, not to get Calvinist on you, but we were meant to be together. So, and I'm not a Calvinist, so don't shower down on me here, guys. But anyway,
that's beautiful.
There are we've talked about that. There are no coincidences. So.
Well, speaking of we were speaking of the video, and guess who one of the PhDs who contributed to the video?
Oh man, I tell you, Dr. Carter. That was awesome.
So this is encouraging to hear, guys. I'll pass it on to the team. We should be done with the third animation near the end of the year. Wow.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Those were excellent. And having taught 7th and 8th graders and sophomores in high school up through college kids and teachers, that was excellent. And it wasn't condescending whatsoever. It was funny and light enough that you stayed engaged with it, especially for a knuckle dragger like me. But it would appeal. It's like Bugs Bunny cartoons. Bugs Bunny cartoons appeal to little kids because it's funny and it's slapstick. But the sociocultural things that people have never heard in Bugs Bunny cartoons that applied to culture, which are hilarious once you grow up and you understand them. So it was a good combination of that kept everybody engaged. But the science was not so difficult that a layman couldn't understand it. And that's what I've so wanted PhDs to get that mix into there, and I think you guys are nailing it. So absolutely. I'm looking forward to it more. And I wish we could do that not only for biology, but we could do that for you guys are covering the chemistry and the biology, but also for physics, for fine tuning the universe, and for other things like that. Oh, yeah. So, if we could figure out like a Frank Turek to come up with and a John Lennox to come up with a moral apologetic side of that, that'd be awesome too. So, but well done, man. It was good. Yeah, you might want to put that in your side chat. I don't know.
I may not be able to get the link immediately. It's on the Discovery Institute website or evolutionnews.org. I actually don't have it handy. I'm really sorry about that.
Actually, you know what? I think I got it handy. Hold on, Sal. I think I got it in my little stack here.
Put it in the comment. So in the meantime, if Sandy can find it and drop it in the comment or put it in the private, and then I'll drop it in the comment. I'm going to cover this since we're almost.
It's the challenge to origin of life, biopolymers, right?
Yep.
I got it. Yep. Hold on. Wait.
Since we're past midnight, I'll just abbreviate this, but on the 21st on the Bread of Life channel, I'll be giving a talk to honor my mother and father on the title of the presentation is "A Faint Heart Never Won a Fair Maiden." And I shared earlier about that here. I'm trying to write a book that's a collection of essays that teaches the gospel through commentaries on archetypal and historical love stories. And one of the love stories I'll be talking about is the love story of my mother and father. And I covered about my dad risking his life for my mom. And I'm going to read a little bit of something I'm going to share from Dr. Dobson. I'll probably share more if I have time from Dr. Dobson in that presentation with on the Bread of Life channel with Rebecca. I'm going to rebroadcast it here. But
hey, Sal, I put that into the private chat. I can't get into the public chat.
I'll do that for you. Hang on.
So it's in the private chat.
Yep. Thank you, Colonel Kaleem.
Colonel Kaleem is most pleased to help. Man called Sal.
And here it is. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's participated in the side chat. And I know I may have missed a few comments and questions because I can't multitask very well for that sort of thing. But I'm going to read. There's this chapter in the book, Love Must Be Tough by Dr. Dobson. Love Must Be Tough. Dr. Dobson is a famous Christian psychologist. He's not as well known now as he was. He did focus on the family. And I was surprised how many people hated him. It was because he's one of the first to come out vigorously for the traditional family. And, I was like, well, what's the big deal? Marriage is between a man and a woman. Why are you hating on him for that? And well, we're seeing how this is played out in culture.
You found out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, did you see today that the Catholic Diocese of America came out and apparently the Pope backed it up finally,
amazing. This Pope, oh my goodness. Anyway,
I
they
didn't see
came
it.
out
What
and
happened?
stipulated that transgenderism, and they will no longer bless transgenderism nor same-sex marriages,
It
which
took them this long. Like,
took
duh.
them this long. Yeah, like duh, hello. So
I mean, I grew up a Catholic, and they said one of the most sacred sacraments is marriage. It's like, you ought to know what that is. Okay, it's not that hard. And there, and that was one of the, it's not well known, just total aside here, total rabbit trail. A Catholic priest can get married. You just can't remain a priest. And God bless them. Occasionally some of these priests realize, hey, I need a
I mean,
woman.
that whole I was looking
Yeah.
I was watching Vodi Bakum the other night, and he was talking about the Synod of Orange is where in 529 AD is where they put into law the celibacy of priests and deacons. But I'm still trying to, and I've gone back and I'll show you a really useful book that Sam Shamoon turned me on to, and it's the Dictionary of Early Christian Beliefs, and it's all the writings of Clement, Tertullian, Justin Martyr on specific topics. None of the church fathers ever talked about this. This seemed to be an extrapolation of celibacy for priests out of the Apostle Paul, just because the Apostle Paul was celibate. So I'm still trying to figure out where this came from and how it was, for lack of a better, cauterized into the Catholic tradition. I still haven't found it yet, but anyway, I know it goes back to 529 at least. So I'm thinking it goes back a little further, but we'll see. And I don't know, maybe it was because of Augustine's shenanigans in the early part of his life, but who knows?
Yeah, and that's just caused a lot of problems because, that's my feeling, that it says in Corinthians it's better to marry than to burn, and they're not. And as I mentioned, I'm writing a book that'll be a collection of essays on, not commentaries on historical and archetypal love stories, but and I try to point out, I said, okay, we live in a fallen world. When Adam and Eve were created, there's no such thing as pornography, adultery, or fornication. It was just them. There's no way they could mess this up sexually. The way, and the only way that it could mess up was eating the forbidden fruit, which I think the main thing was a sin of the heart. They were rebelling really seriously against God. They wanted to be God themselves. That was ultimate sin. I don't know that the fruit had any, magical power, so to speak, in and of itself, but that act of the heart was their only sin. But, you had Adam there and Eve, and it did almost kind of make me, quote unquote, blush that God's word went to the trouble of emphasizing they had no clothes. And I thought about this. And
but what that symbolizes is the knowledge of their own worldliness at that point. So, the serpent representing the world, and them becoming aware of their own nakedness is becoming aware of their own physicality and losing their innocence. And I mean, there's all kinds of pathways you can go with that theologically, but what Vodi Bakum brought up a really good point that the seed of the woman would crush the serpent, by the heel of the seed of the woman's. The seed of the woman, the heel will crush the serpent. And same-sex marriage, he proffered, is an attempt by the devil, by Satan, to at that time to stop the lineage that would lead to Christ and salvation. And in some sense, it's the same way today, is to stop the proliferation of Christian ethic, which I thought was very interesting comment. But
my
and he had
point was, my point was slightly different. Was that in the Garden of Eden, there was no such thing as sexual sin, because they were there, they were married. You don't have the problems you have now in a fallen world where the guy has to wait, the girl has to wait. There's such things as fornication and adultery. There was none. It was not possible in principle with that first couple. We don't know what would have happened later. I'm trusting that God would have taken care of it. And so my point is that now we're beset with a lot of troubles, but unfortunately we still have the same design and very strong desires. And so there are people that are in unhappy marriages. And I'm just like, things go down, like in the case of William Carey, where his wife goes insane and he has to live with that for 13 years, but he doesn't leave her. God bless him. God bless him. But, we're faced with temptations that were not there in the Garden of Eden. You would have had, if you contrast William Carey's marriage to an insane woman, to if Adam and Eve hadn't sinned, Eve would have lived forever. She would have been physically and mentally healthy for eternity. And you wouldn't be faced with temptations of regretting and bearing a cross of the problems we have now. But so I'm going to cover that a little bit. But I wanted to say, so this is from Love Must Be Tough, and this is Loving Toughness for Singles. And so it was kind of funny you were talking about your prep school students acting kind of funny. Okay, so and I'm just going to read a little bit here in the interest of time. I'll read more, God willing, when Rebecca and I talk. It says here, an entire book could be written, this chapter 15, an entire book could be written on love must be tough principles as related to unmarried men and women. The problem, quite frankly, is that many singles want so desperately to be married that they violate the laws of freedom and respect in romantic relationships. That is like turning a fire hose on a flickering flame. All that remains is black smoke and ashes. I heard of one young man who was determined to win the affection of a girl who refused to even see him. He decided that the way to win her heart was through the mail, so he began writing her a love letter every day. When she did not respond, he increased his output to 3 notes every 24 hours. In all, he wrote her more than 700 letters, and she married the postman. Okay, that might be apocryphal. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah. Oops.
But now this one, the next account is I think was reported. That is the way the system works. Romantic love is one of those rare human endeavors that
Coming here.
best.
Sorry. I just got yelled at. It's 12:30.
I'll let you go. I'm almost done here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Romantic love is one of those rare human endeavors that succeeds best when it requires the least effort. Those who work the hardest at it are the most likely to fail. And speaking of people who try harder, no one beats the dude named Keith Ruff, whose story was told in the Los Angeles Times, February 21st, 1982, by Betty Cuniberti. The headline read, "Man spends $20,000 trying to win the hand of the girl who can say no." A love-struck man holed up in a $200 a day Washington hotel, which would be like $400 now, at least, maybe $600, has spent, at the latest estimate, close to $20,000 demonstrating to his beloved that he won't take no for an answer to his marriage proposal. And it gives a laundry list here, which I will read in the next show. So that's a little teaser.
Yeah. What's the worst thing a woman can say to you that you're chasing? I just want to be friends. You might as well just rack around and just blast. So, you know, that's
Brother,
that's that story that I was telling you about with Turk. With was you know that God will not. God sends you flowers. God sends you candy. God sends you, but you know if you don't want him, he doesn't. He's not going to take you kicking and screaming to heaven. So
I like that. And by the way, thanks for sharing about you and Suzanne. That is of God. Praise the Lord. That made my day, Sandy.
Yeah. Well, we weathered it. So. All right. Before I hear a frying pan, before I hear a frying pan zinging past my head, you know, like a grenade through a door, I better sign off.
All right. Take care, and I'll follow brother. Shortly. But God bless you. Thanks for
just real quick. If you get a hold of any more of Dr. Carter's videos, and if he wants get out of here. Go away. Stop being dramatic. Get out of here. Jeez. She just found a wok. We got to season it tomorrow, but this thing's heavy too, man. It's like a restaurant grade wok. Anyway, if Dr. Carter wants an audience or anybody to preview what they're doing, I'd be happy to do it, because if I can understand it, pretty much anybody will be able to understand it. And I want to be able to screen it for Christian apologists who don't have a biology background, you know, who are generalists.
There you go. Dr. Carter's right here too.
So,
yeah, he's still here.
Yeah, he can. And he's laughing at me. Hey, just bring it down to my. You know, I have a doctorate, but yeah, I'm a generalist. You know, so.
All right,
SEALs were good. SEALs were generalists too. So, except for combat swimming, we were the best in the world.
Amen,
although the German Kampfschwimmers would disagree with us, but anyway.
Well,
all right, brother.
Again,
God bless.
brother.
Yeah.
See you. Okay. See ya. So, guys, it was really a lot of fun. I really miss doing this. So, I'm hoping my schedule eases, and so you could be in prayer for me that the jobs go well, and that I'll have more time to be doing stuff like this. So I'm really looking forward to my show with Rebecca Davis this coming up. She runs the Bread of Life channel, and I'll appear there the 21st, and then she gave me permission to rebroadcast, so that'll probably be the 28th that it shows on this channel. So I've had a lot of fun, guys. I've missed you all incredibly, and Lord willing, we'll see each other again. And for those of us that, it might be a while before we see each other again, a very merry and blessed Christmas to you all. God bless, and have a great evening. Good night.